legal and fiscal responsibilities and all liabilities associated with big data. And then the third question we're going to ask ourselves is, are you able to outline any possible elements that are involved in data governance? So Mochi, you can assist me to see participants who have raised their hands. Anyone who would like to try any of the questions? Mochi, do we have any hand raised?
Yes, we have Regan.
Proceed, Regan.
Yeah, so much I hope you can hear me.
Yes, Regan, we can hear you.
Yeah, Phyllis, to question number one, has your organization adopted or implemented the Data Protection Act? I think the answer to these questions to most of the organization might be a no, because one of the things is when the data commissioner was appointed the other day, and there was a court ruling that actually nullified the process. So as it stands, the act is in force, but we do not have a data commissioner to enforce some of these regulations that are supposed to be implemented. And then that means what we expect is most organizations are yet to actually understand what the document talks about. And of course, because of lack of an or limited knowledge about what the regulation states, it means the adoption might also be affected. So to answer your question one, most likely, most organizations in Kenya are yet to implement what the regulation states, but that will we're going to see a scenario where that might change once the data commissioner is in place and we'll have a functioning office. So that will be my answer for question number one.
Thank you, Regan, for that. So we'll proceed to answer these questions in our discussion. So we can proceed into the meat of the discussion. So I will welcome my colleague CPA Peter to just give us some insights before we proceed. CPA Peter, if you can hear me.
Yes, I can hear you. Okay. Good morning, team. I'm sure you can hear me. I think when the issue of Zoom came, a lawyer who is in our neighborhood said that they were prosecuting the cases inside their houses. And so every time he would be heard by the neighbor saying, "My Lord, can you hear me? My Lord, I can see you." And so everybody thought that the lawyer has become born again because every time he's saying, "My Lord, I can see you. Can you hear me?" So, Kambua, you're saying you can hear me?
Yes, I can hear you
Yeah,
clearly.
I think it's very important for the team to know that I'm the one who requested at least to be given 1 minute to open a discussion. One of the reasons is because some of us were born before 1980s, and there are a few things that we have seen them coming. In late 90s, when computers were introduced, they became the in thing in Kenya. The question everybody was asking you, do you have an email? If you had an email, you became very popular and people are very happy. So the first question I'd be asked, I hear nowadays you have an email. So, and email was the in thing. And then, by then, if you look what we have, the photos we have here, the first thing is actually the computer. That's a computer. I know some of us may not know. I've seen several people in the team who could have learned about that computer in the school. But that was the computer we had. By then, it was very highly protected gadget. It was only kept in the CEO's office. My first job assignment in 1999, when I started working, I went to an office and it was actually covered. It was covered. One had to open it to access the computer, and it was only accessed by two people. That is the CEO and the secretary. We were not allowed to touch it. Come year 2000, everybody became, everybody was, actually even before the 1990s was through, everyone graduating from Form 4, the dream was actually to do computers. And by then, information was highly protected. Then in year 2000, people started having phones. In fact, the news that came from Kenya at the end of 2000 was that out in Uganda were having phones. And everybody was shocked if a tout can own a phone or a matatu driver can own a phone. But by year 2000, the phones came. Those are the phones that we had there, very popular then. I'm sure Ruben can identify with one of them. I'm also sure Joanne can identify, Evans can identify. Kambo, you may not identify with any of those. So what happens is that most organizations now have phones. Most people had phones. But the information on the phone was highly protected. You could not access anybody's number. If somebody, even if your mother asked you for a number of your friend, you'll tell your mother, let me tell my friend to call you. In organizations where we worked, the third organization I worked, which was a membership body, I remember, if somebody came and asked for a member's phone number, the first thing we'll say, no, we'll tell the member to contact you. We will never give a phone number. It will never go out. Then the other photo we have is an ATM. The first thing we saw an ATM that money can get from a wall. It was surprising. We were all surprised, and you can see those people are very happy that at least you don't need to go and queue in the bank. So this is a banking sector, which has a very high security. It's a high security entity where data is protected of the members. Then I also put one to show where accounting is coming from, because those who are accountants long time ago would understand that issues of software have changed. The software comes with the issue of storage of big data. It also comes with the issues of security issues. So what happens is that during those days, data was highly sensitive. And nobody, even if somebody called you, you'd ask, where did you get my number? Nowadays, maybe I could ask from the team. When somebody calls you, do you ask where he got the number? No, we don't ask. Even if today you called the chairman of Council of Governors, he will not ask where you got the number. You say, yes, what is it? Today you can get a phone number of almost anybody. Numbers are not hidden. If you called an office and you have the CEO's number, they'll give you. I'm saying this out of experience. In 2012, I was called by somebody, and when he called me, I only knew the full names and his bank. I did not have the, and the ID, sorry. I knew where he was banking, and I knew because I knew where he had deposited the money. I knew his full names. I also knew his ID number. And I just went to the bank. I was able to retrieve all his information, where he came from, who are his next of kin, his phone contacts. And when the person found me in his country waiting for him where he had run to it, that information, I got it from a bank. And so I'm saying this because today we are talking about the issue of data security. So this person thought his data was very secure, and I actually got it from a bank. And I was able to access the person even where he was and to know more about him. I even now knew about his relatives. So that's one. The other thing we need to ask ourselves, if you look at today, we all received SMSs from all organizations. Today, I have an SMS from KCB. I don't bank with them. I have an SMS from Old Mutual Insurance. I don't bank with them. I have SMSs from everybody. Those who are in professional bodies, let's go to the next slide. Those who are in professional bodies, I put them there. We have ISPAC, we have Law Society of Kenya, we have Human Resource, we have all those professional bodies. During campaigns, we all receive messages. Somebody tell you, vote for me. So you wonder, how are they getting this data? Where are they getting? How do they know that I'm a member? So today, Calvin is buying to be a board member of Law Society of Kenya. Then he sends me a campaign message. So he's aware I'm a member of Law Society of Kenya and I'm in good standing. So that means Calvin has all my information. So the information, I'm saying this because years back, it was not possible for you to get a message from somebody who is buying because they could not access your data. The data was highly protected. It was not being given out. I'm not saying the professional bodies give out the data, but again, these are the questions maybe we may need answer today. That is it that our data is being given out? The other day, I had visited KRA with somebody who he really had a rough time with KRA. and they were saying that he had not been paying rental income for many years. And when he went there, the first thing we actually told him, no, we are not aware of the buildings you are talking about. However, we are aware of this building. But KRA surprised us. They said actually the information you're giving us is very new. The information we have is more, we have all the information about this person. When we have the person, they had all the information, everything he has ever owned, all his lands, everything. And so we actually had to tell KRA, before even we continue, why don't you tell us the information you have so that we can tell you what we have, because we don't want to start from the wrong footing. So they had actually all the information. And we asked it, where are they getting this information from? Sometimes back we took Huduma number, which is a good thing. And you can hear the noise that came in, that now the government is going to have all the information about every person in this country. And when the government has the information about everybody in this country, it means that's a good thing. Reason being, services will be centralized. You don't need to be asked for anything. If you want to go to the airport, nobody asks you for your passport. They ask you for your Huduma number. If you go to the bank to withdraw money, nobody will ask you for your account number. They ask you for your Huduma number. Anywhere you go, so it's like whenever it's like those of us who are saved, you are only asked, do you believe in Jesus Christ? And that's enough. You go to heaven. It doesn't depend which denomination. So I think the Huduma number is actually something that is going to revolutionize the way we do things. That nobody will ask you for anything else. All your information is centralized. I'm saying this to provoke debate. So anybody can take me wrong. But I mean to provoke debate so that people can be able to react. So, but the issue that came up was, this data, if it's hacked, what happens? Today, I think there's another thing I'm not sure, but I think we are being told to register fresh or something like that. And people are already complaining that this data may be used to even make the election more better or something like that. But I think when we talk about this Huduma number, is it something that can be hacked? And we know that if you know that America can be hacked, the election can be hacked. What makes us so secure? So this information that is being contained with one person or one entity, all the information, we need to ask ourselves how safe that information is. Let's look at the issue of ID. All Kenyans have IDs. Maybe the team could respond if, let's say, you've ever had somebody possessing your ID number. At the moment, my meter number in Kenya, I was not able to register for meter in Kenya Power, because when I went to register to put electricity in my house, they told me my ID number is in use by another person. So for registering for electricity, we had to use my wife's ID number because mine was in use. Today, if somebody calls you and gives you an ID number, the first thing for us to verify the person before we do any transaction, if it's land buying or anything like that, we have to go to the government to verify if the names and the ID number match what is in their system. Because today, if I wanted an ID number, an ID, not ID, an ID card, written Phyllis Kambua, I will get it. And you will not tell me you did not dispose that piece of land, because that's actually your ID, but it's actually fake. So you have to verify the IDs, because IDs, they are fake. I've told you my case. I was not able to put up electricity simply because my ID is being used by another person. Somebody else applied electricity for Kenya Power with it. So I think as we do this presentation today, there are core issues that we need to discuss. There are core issues we need. Maybe the presenter may not present all of them, but it's very important as a people, as a professionals, to ask ourselves these questions very loudly so that we can be able to share and also ensure that we benefit each other. Thank you very much. And I hope we're going to have a fruitful session. The last session, I think this one I have forgotten this slide. This actually sums up what I'm asking. Is our data secure? I've mentioned critical issues that we may need to really think about the security of our data. I think we can say that as professionals, we are very serious. And for people who are in audit, who are in finance, if there's something they take very seriously is the issue of security. But we need to think if we are really serious about it, or because even if we are taking it seriously, is it serious in the real sense? are we exposing ourselves? So thank you very much. Let's proceed.
Thank you so much, CPA. So I will just go further and ask us, what is data security governance? So we have seen the way we have so many data. So we need to put practices in place so that we ensure that we secure all these data. So a simple definition of data security governance can be putting practices and methods in which you can secure data so that you can be able to have high quality data. So after what CPA has told us, we see that there is need for us to secure our data. There is need for us to secure our data so that we may not find hackers who, for instance, hack our Huduma number and then they're able to see the details of what you do or what businesses you do, which can later come on and jeopardize your financial security. So we can look at why data security governance is important. So this we have subdivided this into three elements where we have the confidentiality, the integrity, and the availability of the data. So when our data is secure, there is confidence in that data. There is the people believe that this data and consumers believe that they can be able to trust the businesses with their data. So when we talk about data security governance, we need to ensure that this data is secure. And here we talk about now the confidentiality. So we need to ensure that we put all this data through various encryption services so that all our consumers may trust us and they have confidence that we are able to protect their data. So the other thing here is about integrity. Is the data that we are protecting very accurate? After a period of 1 year, will the data be consistent? Or if the data will be hacked, we'll find that there'll be an instance where maybe the ID number of, let's say, CPA Peter will not be matching the ID that he gave us in the year, the past year. So we need to ensure that data security, when we put these practices, there is integrity. There is the accuracy of the data, the completeness, and then there's the consistency of the data. So when we also ensure that we have put these practices of securing the data, we ensure that we have increased the protection of the data. So the data is available at any given time. Let's say if we put the data in the cloud, we are sure that the data will be secure in that cloud. So there's that element of now this data being available. So we need to note that data security governance is very important because it gives the data the element of there is the confidentiality of the data, there's the integrity of the data, and there's also the availability of the data. So what should we consider when we are just trying to put these practices in place, when we are trying to know how we can secure our data? So we need to know the value of our data. How important is our data? Is the data that we have about our consumers or about the business activities that we carry? So we need to know the value of our data. And after knowing the value of our data, we are able to know how we are going to protect it. The other thing we need to know is who can access our data. Is it everyone in the organization who is able to access the data, or is it the management, or is it the people who are tasked with the element of analyzing the data? So we need to know who can access this data. And from knowing who can access the data, we are able to know how we can protect this data. The other element we need to know is where have we stored our data? Where is the location of our data? Have we stored the data in our hard drives in our offices, or have we stored the data in our cloud? So by knowing where your data is located, you are able to know how you are going to maybe encrypt this data. If you're going to maybe hire cloud services to encrypt your data, or you're going to secure your data with various pins. The other thing we need to know about is now the security of our data. The data that you're currently holding, how secure is it, and who is protecting the data? So if you're able to know who is tasked with the element of protecting your data, you are able to know the practices that you're going to put in place so that the data remains secure and the data remains consistent throughout the whole life cycle of the data, from the point where you collect the data up to the point where you analyze the data and now keep it for reference. The other element you also need to know is the protection of the data. Do you know how well this data is protected? Is the policies that you have put in place and the practices that you have put in place, do they protect your data well enough, or it's something that maybe after a period of 1 week someone can hack, after someone just knowing the kind of businesses you do and what you what you hold important, they are able to maybe craft a password and be able to hack your data. So you need to know how well this data is protected. So after knowing how all these elements, how your data, the value of your data, and how you can protect your data, then you can able to put various practices in place so that you can ensure that your data remains secure throughout the whole period. So we can look at what this data can achieve. So after securing this data, you have quality data that you can be able to provide key insights for your businesses. So with your data, if you take a small amount of that data, or if you can cluster major amounts of that data, you can be able to know what that data can give you, or what you can get from that data. What information do you want from that data? So do you intend to learn the behavior of your consumers? Do you intend to know how often your consumers buy a certain product, or how often your consumers demand for a certain service? So you need to know also what is the intention of your data. Are you just trying to monitor your business activities so that you ensure that there are no fraudulent activities being carried on in your business? So you need to know what need do you need your information to serve you. If it's trying to serve the need of you knowing how your consumers are behaving, or if it's you're trying to know how the business activities of your organizations are being carried. So we can say that if we have now data, we are able to see a number of ways in which this data can increase our revenue. So let's look at companies like Amazon. So Amazon is an online platform. So if right now we just go through to the Amazon platform, we are able to see if you're searching for a certain product and you just take two searches, you're able to see that Amazon will try to customize your search so that it can be able to give you the product that you want. So if, for instance, you're trying to purchase a cooker and right now you search for a cooker, the first thing they will give you different types of cookers. And then when you customize your search once again and see that maybe you want cookers from Ramtons, now you will see that Amazon will customize your search so that they can be able to give you what you need. They can be able to serve your need. So what does this mean for Amazon? This means that they'll be able to get more revenue from you, because what they expect is that you'll be able to purchase this good, and if they give you more goods similar to that, there'll be that interest that you'll have to buy those goods. So that means that they have captured your attention, they have customized your need, and they'll be able to now give you they'll entice you so that you can buy that product. So this will generate more revenues for the organization. So let's look at Standard Bank. So Standard Bank uses MasterCard Advisor so that they can be able to know through the transactions that business people or even entrepreneurs carry out, how they can customize their products. So we saw recently that now Standard Chartered is now trying to encourage women in chamas so that they can roll up for now their products. How did they know that there are women out there who are in chamas and who are just trying to save in a bank? So they were able to use this MasterCard Advisor so that they can be able to know the kind of need that the market needs. So what do we need to do so that we can also behave like Amazon or even Standard Bank? So we need to ensure that first we arrange our data in line with the business goals. What are our business goals? So if our goal is to be able to get more customers buying our products, how can we arrange this data in a way that we can be able to know how we are going to generate more revenue in our organization? Using big data analytics can also help us know how we are going to increase revenue. So you can study your website traffic patterns and also predict the amount of time that you take to deliver a certain product to your clients. So this will also help you to know how you can increase your revenue and how you can also put practices in place so that you ensure that you serve the need. If your clients need that their products being delivered within a shorter period of time, you're able to use these analytics so that you can be able to know how you can improve your services so that they can meet the needs of your clients. Uh, Using also big data, you can be able to carry out a strength, weakness, and opportunity and threats analysis so that you can be able to know as an organization what can you improve so that your management, the overall management of the organization improves. So if we improve the overall management of the organization, we are able to see scenarios where now the management supports now the other departments, and now the other departments are able to in turn ensure that more products are being produced, and now we can see that we can be able to increase our revenues. The other thing we need to know that when we use big data, we are able to know what our clients need, and we are able to customize what customize our products or our services according to what they need. So for instance, us as Capabim, if we realize that most of our clients, most of you delegates here, want products in technology, we are able to customize our services and products so that we can ensure whatever we give you are products that entail elements of technology, or we ensure that if we if we give you products, other products in public finance and taxation, we include an element of technology because we have seen that it's an interest that most of our delegates have. So we need to know how, as organization, we can be able to personalize the touch of our customer needs so that we can be able to meet their needs according to what they need. So when we do this, we are able to see a hike in sales, and then we are able to see us as an organization increasing our revenue. After knowing what your customers need and the type of products and services they require, then you are able to filter your ways of advertising, and you can ensure that you do efficient advertising. And then we also need to ensure that by using now this big data analysis, we are able to know the behavior patterns of our consumers. How oftenly do our consumers buy our service? Do they buy our service maybe at the end of the month or at the beginning of the month? And now in the middle of the month, we have few cash flows. So by knowing how your consumers demand for your goods and the behavior, you are able to know how you can increase your revenue by continually meeting their needs. So now let's look at now what's driving your data governance initiative. So before we look at this, we can I can just give us some few scenarios where we see that there's now an increase in now the issue of data security. So recently we saw that Safaricom was being sued because of releasing their data as information, and people were really concerned because now they were thinking, okay, why is Safaricom releasing our data? Why are we continuously getting various information on a certain product? And when I was buying a product from Safaricom, that was not my intention. So now we see now consumers now having a key interest because now they want their data to be protected. We also see a scenario where there's now the issue of the Huduma number, as CPA Peter Kieko has outlined. So, uh, so now when the Huduma number is here, we all need to know that our information is secure with the government, or maybe if after a period of 1 year, will the government be able to protect my data, or will my data be available for anyone who be just trying to see what they can do with my data? So we see that now consumers are demanding, they need that their data to be protected. And also as consumers, we know that from the Data Protection Act, we know that we have the right to claim back our data if it's not properly protected, or if the organization where we gave our data is being misused, or maybe the organization took our data without our consent and they use it for their own personal gain. So for instance, in the last week, we saw that Techno is now supposed to pay an artist 0.5 million Kenyan shillings because now they used the picture of that client, of that artist without her consent. So now we see that us as consumers, we can get our data back, and we can we can sue these companies that use our data without our consent. So what does this imply for businesses? Businesses need to be key in ensuring that they secure uh, the data of consumers and the data of people who trust that they can protect their data. So let me welcome my colleague Samuel Ochieng to take us deeper into how we can ensure that there is data security governance. Samuel, if you can hear me?
So thank you, Phyllis. I don't know whether you can hear me.
Yes, I can.
So thank you. And thank you also to CPA Peter. I think we have had a serious overview on some of the current scenarios or what was happening in the past and the trends that we have been seeing over the years as relates to the evolution of technology and also how data governance or data security governance is coming in. And thank you, Phyllis, for also bringing in an aspect of how data analytics is crucial to ensuring that businesses are having much more revenue or businesses are future forward in terms of their revenue development, the interaction with customers, and so on and so forth. So we want, as we cap off this presentation, we want to look at three critical facets that are going to help us to hit the ground running as we implement data security governance or data governance. Remember, we have said that data governance is generally that set of rules, procedures, people, processes that we put in place to ensure that throughout the life cycle of data in our organizations, that there is privacy, there is protection, there is security, and there is compliance to the existing regulatory frameworks that are there in our environments. And what we want to look at now as we are about to finish is we want to see what are some of the key drivers that we'll need to consider at an organizational level, and also even at a personal level, what are the key trends that we can jump on so that we can be able to capitalize on our professional journeys. And I think this is coming out very well in this slide where we are asking, and this is just from a survey that IBM did in around 2017, and they were asking a number of our technology professionals, top technology professionals across the world, what were some of the drivers of the data governance initiatives in the organizations, and they were able to get some critical feedback. And the top one, of course, which is even prevailing right now, is regulatory compliance. So we are going to look at some of the things, some of the drivers that are Kenyan relevant. And I think regulatory compliance is the top one for most of us. Remember, as my colleagues have mentioned, that the Data Protection Act was just signed into law in 2019, I think in November, by President Uhuru. And this act, of course, it is actually being implemented in phases of being implemented slowly, because the most critical part is the appointment of the Data Protection Commissioner, which is actually, I think, ongoing. And of course, there might have been itches, as Regan pointed out, but it is actually a process that is ongoing. So just to take us through some of the key provisions of the Data Protection Act 2019, remember, number one, that the Act provides for the establishment of the Data Protection Commissioner. So the Data Protection Commissioner has a number of powers as relates to ensuring that the consumer data is protected across Kenya. He is able to ensure that he registers the data processors, the data controllers. These are the people that deal with data in the organization. He also has the power to investigate any complaints in case someone comes out and says that maybe there's this and this organization in Kenya, this telco is actually using my data in a way that is not actually appropriate. I did not authorize them for this. The way CPA Peter said, if someone comes out from a membership body and maybe goes and reports the same to the Data Protection Commissioner, this person who is going to be appointed, I think either this year or in the course of next year, he has the power to investigate all such infringements, all such complaints that customers bring or consumers bring as it relates to their data. And another thing that is critical is that the Data Protection Commissioner has the power, or he has the responsibility to visit organizations, both public and private, not only private ones, but both public and private across Kenya, and to ensure that all these organizations are complying with the act. So remember that this guy might pop into your office one day and decide to do a spot audit on the way your organization is handling the data from the point of the registration of ID numbers down there at the first floor, if you are in a tall building and so on and so forth. And he might decide to ask whether this data is protected, or is it being at the users that it is being used for. The consumers are being put into the picture. Is it authorized? And in case there's infringement, your organization might be liable for a fine of 5 million shillings, or a fine of 1% of your annual turnover. So it shows you that this thing is very serious. And remember that as it relates to the act, that at the internal level, the Act has defined who the data processors are, who the data controllers are, and the data processors are, it's just like the name is saying, these are the people who actually do the actual maneuvers on the data, who actually process the data. The data controllers are the guys who define the scope of how the data that has come into the organization should be manipulated or should be used. So remember, these guys have actually they have been defined in the Act, and they need to be registered with the Data Protection Commissioner's Office. They need to be registered. So in case, but of course, registration is it actually depends on a number of factors, because if it is mandatory, they look at, I think one of the things, they look at around 3 factors: the nature of the industry, they look at the volume of the data that is being processed by your organization, and they look at the level of sensitive data or that is being actually processed by organization. So if they look at if you consider the nature of the industry or the nature of the organization, remember that there are some organizations which actually are data focused more than others. So you'd actually consider whether the organization is actually a data intensive one, if it is actually so technology based, and if it is in such a manner, or if it is structured in such a manner, then it means you have a bigger obligation more than some other organizations in the country to actually register your data processors and your data controllers with the commissioner's office. So it depends on this number of factors. So the data processors, the data commissioners, or the data controllers, they need to be registered. In case they are not registered, and it is the commissioner finds that in a way they have infringed on the security, the privacy, the confidentiality of the information that consumers provided to organization, then there is actually, I think, around a fine of 3 million shillings or 10 years imprisonment. So it shows you that this thing is actually very serious. So of course, we need to ensure that we comply with the Act. So remember that for every piece of data that you take in, for every piece of information that you take into your organization, as it relates to the regulatory environment in Kenya, which is governed by now the Data Protection Act, the consumers have a right, as Phyllis has pointed out, they have a right to know which data you have on them. They have a right to recall that data. They have a right to request or to ask for an amendment of any data that they find is false or misleading, and they have a right to ask for the total deletion of any data that they find is false or misleading concerning them in the organization. Of course, this does not cover issues that some of the public available data that is actually out there already, that has been provided voluntarily by the individual. So of course, in case I think that covers a number of in case you have provided, right now there are things like social media sites. If you have put your number there, of course, and you've said that you are a business, then people are eligible or they're liable to call you and to ask for your services, of course. But when it relates to the data that you have taken in as companies, then we need to be so clear, and we need to ensure that we put ourselves in the right posture as relates to the Act, because we do not want to be caught on the other side of the law. And remember that if you look clearly at the process, I think they're doing, apart from the court case that Regan mentioned, they're actually doing the shortlisting of the candidates for the Data Protection Commissioner position. And after some time, you're going to see them, I think, coming in and setting up that office. So we need to consider this at our organization. So please ensure that as you're there in your office, you need to go through the Act, and we're here as capable to assist you in the same, to look at, is it necessary for you to register your data controllers and your data processors? Are you adhering to the Act? We are here to help you, and please talk to us. So another thing that should drive your data governance initiative is the issue of customer trust and satisfaction. I think if you have been keenly following social media just in the last few weeks, there's been a prominent bank which has been under fire so much in the last few days because of their handling of some of their customer accounts, and there was an issue of there was an issue that was started that some monies were lost in the almost 100,000 was lost in just a few minutes. And what the person was pointing out, it was on Twitter, he was pointing out that his mother, who actually lost the money, was actually registered for one of the products, and her personal information, including her account number, the account details, the ID number, was taken from her, and as she registered for this product. And he was actually alluding to the fact that the collection of this data was what facilitated the withdrawal, the wrongful withdrawal of money from from his mother's account. And I think the bank came out and they actually stood their position, and I think they actually made amends and so on. So we look at customer trust is actually something that is so pivotal for many organizations. And I think if you look at the history of actually Kenya, many times what has been touted in many of the dailies is that for many of our financial services sector organizations, they don't actually come out and say that we have had this compromise on our customer data, because they believe and they know that once that information comes out, the level of customer trust actually will go down as pertains to their product. So they're actually very careful on how they portray such information. They would rather suffer losses, which actually they would call maybe some of the cost of doing business, rather than just coming out and saying they lost this amount due to infringement of their customer data. So this shows us that this is one of the things we'll need to consider so much. Are we actually upholding, or are we living up to the trust our customers have put in us as relates to our processing of their data? Of course, I will not better decision making. That is so clear. So the better you implement data governance within your organization, the better the quality of data you'll have, and that means subsequently you will be able to do better analytics, better processes, better modeling, better predictions, and that will consequently mean that you'll have superior decision making, which gives you an edge over your competitors. We look at reputation management, and then we move to the next section. So remember that we have said that reputation is actually key during these times, as we have explained. Just for that for that prominent bank that was actually being targeted, it was under fire just for the last few days in terms of their reputation, because people are actually losing trust because of the handling of the data that pertains to their personal accounts. So reputation is actually becoming more and more key for a majority of the organization, because once reputation goes down and customers feel that they have been infringed on, and that they can no longer trust the organization, it means their confidence in the organization actually goes down. This actually happened some time back in, I think when we were doing the last Huduma number registration exercise, there were some claims going around that someone had actually gone, one of the young technology students in JKUAT, I think, it was actually alleged that he had actually deleted the Huduma number data. So it was actually so funny that the registration was ongoing, and it was actually being alluded that, or alleged that this young guy had actually accessed the servers and deleted all that data. So he would start the process again. So I don't know whether it is true that he deleted the data because actually the process is starting again. But one of the things that came out during the last exercise was that there was a very low level of confidence in the ability or in the reputation of the government to uphold customer privacy about their data. There was a very low level of confidence. And I don't know whether the same is going to happen this time, because I know there was a court case at the other time surrounding what was the relevance of the data being collected and why, and there was a big dispute. And I think the process was actually stopped in the courts, but this is the Kenya we know. The process actually, I think, proceeded. So I will not mention more on that. But what we are saying is that for reputation, for customer trust, for satisfaction, for regulatory compliance, for Kenya, these are some of the key drivers that we as organizations don't need to ignore as we are looking into the future. Remember that as soon as the Data Protection Act was implemented, what they did is that they borrowed a lot of stuff. They borrowed a lot of the articles, or a majority of the act was actually lifted from the European GDPR rules, the General Data Protection Rules that actually were set up in Europe that protect the privacy of customers. So Kenya actually lifted a lot of stuff from that from the GDPR. So Felista, I think maybe she has a question, or yes. Sorry, so she has muted. So I was saying that our Data Protection Act actually borrows heavily from the European GDPR rules. And if you look at the moment that the GDPR rules were implemented in Europe, remember that Europe is an economic bloc, or is a group of nations. What happened is that big technology companies like Google faced a lot of lawsuits, up to, I think, billions of dollars, because of now people are coming out and they were saying that most of these technology companies based in the US were actually infringing on the privacy of most of their consumers. And I think the cases are still in court. And if these cases are won, then these companies will be liable to pay massive fines. Remember, just some few months ago, we were taken, I think FCP Evans took us through some of our applications on our phones. And I think in case you've forgotten, remember that some of the applications on your phone, especially the Facebook app, is able to record your off-site activity or your off-app, your browsing activity. It's able to track all the sites you go to. In case you have not disabled that function, it's able to track all the sites you go to, and you'll be shocked to find that when you go to a certain web page, then they will give you an advertisement that actually somehow is related to some of the sites you have been visiting. So that would shock you. Remember that Big Brother is always watching. So we need to be careful as to how we are using our data. So I want us just to look at some of the simple steps. Phyllis, you can move to the next slide and then we'll go so fast. I want us to look at generally one of the best recommended frameworks around data governance, and then we'll be able to see the maturity model, and then we'll be able to bring in any question. So this is a data governance framework that was actually introduced just some decades back by the Data Governance Institute. The DGI Institute or the Data Governance Institute is it's a vendor-friendly kind of organization that operates out of Washington, DC. And there are some of the forward thinkers on the matters data governance. And this institution, I think it has been running from the early 2000s, and they have been at the cutting edge of in helping organizations or helping countries globally to implement data governance. So remember that this is not the only framework, but this is one of the best recommended ones, and it is done by the DGI. That you can look at their site some other time, and you'll be able to get some more information on the same. So basically, if we want to implement a data governance plan or a data governance framework in our organizations, I would want to say that number one, for most of our organizations, we already have some sort of data governance framework. While it might not be as comprehensive as possible, or it might not be as accurate as we would want it to be, there are actually policies in place. Rachel, please mute. There are actually policies in place currently for most of the organizations. Of course, they are not operating in a vacuum. There are actually policies, procedures that could be in place. I think there are a number of maybe memos that have gone out, and people have been informed, do not do this about the data. There could be some verbal communication. So that is, in a sense, a data governance framework. But what we are saying is that we need to ensure that it becomes so professional as being pictured here. So actually, data governance is happening. It could be happening through just you as the person, as the person in the office telling the receptionist that do not give out my number to any person who comes in and asks for my personal number. Do not give it out to them. It could be the people in the office telling the guys at the ground floor that, or the guys who are being registered to come into the building for our organization. We'll be giving you a separate book where you'll be writing their ID numbers, their phone numbers, their purpose for visiting. And after you've written that, you've recorded all that, you'll be handing the book over to us, so that we are the people who are actually custodians of this data that actually pertains to the operations of organization. So that is, in a sense, data governance. But what we are saying is that we need to ensure that it becomes very systematic. So remember, as you look at this framework from the DGI, generally the data governance framework has three broad perspectives or three broad components that you'll have to ensure that you match up, or that you put so that your framework can actually be more comprehensive. It has the aspect of processes. If you look at that diagram very carefully, it has the aspects of the rules and the rules of engagement, and then it looks at the people and the organizational bodies that are involved in the data governance process. So when you look at from the rules of engagement, Jed, I don't know whether you have a question. So much you can help me to mute in case there are a question. Thank you, Jed. So when you look at the rules of engagement, we would want to see the first place, or the first point we start is on looking at how we can tie the issue of data to our company or our business mission and vision. Remember, we say that once you need to ensure that you do an inventory of the data assets that are in your organization. So we have said that in the Data Protection Act, the registration of data processors and data controllers is actually dependent on the nature of the industry, the volume of the data, and the nature of the sensitive personal data that is being provided or is being processed by the organization. And so if you look at it from that perspective, it means that there are some organizations which are actually more data intensive than others. So for all of us who are here, as we go back to organizations, as we run our own businesses, we'll need to try and look and see, after we do an inventory, we need to see what are the data assets that we have. Now, of course, for a company like Safaricom, it has more data assets, more than every other company. Let's say we could say maybe in Kenya. Of course, that is a statement to be argued upon, but just a simplified kind of example. So Safaricom is actually very data intensive. So you'd find that they have more data assets, more than all the other organizations maybe we work in currently as we are listening to this webinar. So it means that they need to ensure that they tie in their data. They need to ensure that they tie in the purpose or their use of data with their mission and their vision, so that they bring it into view as more of an asset, not just as something that actually is routine in the organization. So you'd want to ensure that you create that. If you look at the process, that would mean you create what we call a value proposition. Why is it that you are collecting data from you? What are we going to use this data to do? If you look like at a big global company like Netflix, one of the things they have done is that they collect the data of your use or your user behavior as you're on their site, such that once you just log off, the next time you come, they're able to give you tailor-made recommendations based on the movies or the programs you watched, based on whether the genres that you are looking at, based on maybe the timings, the level of time that you used on each movie, because of course there are some ones that maybe you would forward a lot very fast and you jump sections, and the other ones that you would watch them progressively, and so on and so forth. So they're able to give you tailor-made kind of an appeal, or they're able to market to you a tailor-made kind of a product, so that the guys who actually go on that platform, you'd find that they continually use it. Why? Because these guys have tied in the purpose for which they use data closely to their mission and vision of enabling them to serve customers in a better way. So that is the point one. You need to ensure that around when you're building up, when you're setting out the rules and the rules of engagement surrounding your data governance framework, you look at the value proposition. Why are we using data? What and how do we tie it to the mission and the vision? And then the second thing is that you need to define the key parameters that would actually measure if success is being attained in your use of the data. So you'd want to look at what are the goals that you are targeting as you are setting out your data governance initiative. Is it to ensure that privacy of data is maintained? Is it to ensure that the security of data is upheld so that there is no hacking? And remember that the Data Protection Act actually states that the organization should put in reasonable measures to ensure that the customer data that they have is actually not accessed or is not hacked. It should actually put in reasonable measures. And in case there is any infringement or there is any hacking or there is any unauthorized access to that data, they should actually inform the Data Protection Commissioner in good time so that they're able to take, and they should also inform the kind of measures that they have taken to ensure that they remedy the situation. So it means that you need to ensure what goal are we targeting as we are setting out this data governance framework. Is it to ensure that there is quality data so that we can use it for marketing? Is it to ensure that there is privacy so that we adhere to the Data Protection Act? Is it to ensure that the security of the data that you already have within the organization is actually protected? So you need to look at some goals and also some metrics or some success measures or some KPIs, of course, some key performance indicators. Of course, if there are 15 data breaches within your organization within a year, it means that something is wrong with the security that you set up, something is wrong with your architecture, your enterprise architecture. So you need to look at some KPIs, and then you also need to look at funding. How are we going to ensure that the goals that you have put in place, if it is security, are we going to buy some off-the-shelf kind of solution so that we can implement it in our organization? Are we going to purchase a special antivirus that tracks spam, that tracks our emails, that tracks the sharing of files within our organization? Are we going to buy some server space from Amazon Web Services for our organization so that we can store our folders on the cloud? So that is what we are talking about when you're looking at funding. So that when you after you define the KPIs, Rachel, please mute. After you define the KPIs, you're looking at how do we fund it. And of course, this is very critical because remember that without cash flow, it's very hard for some of these projects to be actually implemented. And then as you're looking at the rules of engagement, you also need to look at the decision rights. So remember that what you're talking about here is that we are looking at creating a kind of a differentiated structure of with increasing levels of authorization as relates to the use, the manipulation, or the transformation of data that is within an organization. This means, of course, it is just basic. It is the same way as saying that the data, maybe you have a data, your data governance officer or data governance kind of a board member, or you have a CTO, a chief technology officer, a chief information officer. Of course, they will have much more privilege as to how to direct the manipulation of the data as opposed to maybe the data processor or the data controller. So that is just creating a differentiated structure that will enable you to know who actually has more power as relates to directing the organization on the use of the data that you have accumulated. And of course, this ties in very closely with the level of accountabilities, because remember that as data is being used, the data processors, the data controllers, they are liable for prosecution in case they are found to be guilty of infringement of some of the processes or some of the policies that have been put in place to actually protect customer data here in Kenya. So once these guys they are held accountable, that means that for your organization, set up a responsibility matrix, a RACI matrix, and ensure that all the people who are responsible for the data actually well defined. And of course, control mechanisms, this just deals with putting in, of course, processes and people who actually oversight the process. So you're talking about putting in some data champions within maybe your department. In case, let's say, if it is finance, there could be a data champion that ensures that as he talks to all the staff members who are there, he ensures that this that all the files may be password protected. That is just a simple thing that a data champion within the department would do. All the files, maybe the Excel files that deal with the sensitive, maybe you're doing your payroll maybe on just simply Excel, and then you send it to the bank for the checks to be done. So once that happens, is that you ensure that the Excel files are password protected. Simple things like that. That is just putting a person in terms of a control mechanism. Of course, you can put in you can purchase some technologies which actually help you to monitor in case there's any infringement or there's any unauthorized access. So this means that once you look at the rules of engagement, you have looked at the goals, the metrics. You have looked at the business purpose, why you are using data within your organization, what is actually the goal of the same. You have tried to define who is accountable for what. You have looked at the differentiated levels of authority as it relates to the manipulation of the data, and you have set up the control mechanisms to ensure that your data is actually protected in an automatic kind of fashion. So once you do that, that ensures that you have set up the rules and the definitions that govern how data comes into your organization, how it is processed throughout its life cycle, and how it exits the organization. Another key component of the data governance framework is the processes. And when you're looking at the processes, you need to ensure that you put in processes that are actually proactive in nature, are reactive sometimes, and you need to ensure that there's an ongoing kind of audit every time, so that you ensure that there's compliance to actually the processes that you've set up or the policies that you've set up. And then, of course, the last component that you'll need to ensure you focus on are the people and the organizational bodies that are actually stakeholders of the data governance process. Remember, we have said that the data protection, the Office of the Data Protection Commissioner is actually one of the key stakeholders. Peter, please mute, or maybe you have a question. Thank you, Peter. Yeah. So we have said that the Office of the Data Protection Commissioner currently is a key stakeholder. Remember, we have said that the Data Protection Commissioner has the power to walk into your office, whether it is public sector or private sector, because many times when you talk about this, people would look and they say maybe it is actually for private sector only. No, it is public sector and private sector organizations. He's able to walk in at any time and is able to conduct a spot-on audit to ensure that you are adhering to the Data Protection Act. He's a key stakeholder that you will need to consider. Of course, you are looking at also the board is actually one of the other key data stakeholders, and you need maybe to set up a data governance committee or a data governance council, or someone to just be on point on data governance at the board level. Someone who will act as the sponsor, who will ensure that the funding that you need is actually pushed forward. So remember, we'll see in the last slide that one of the key things that you need to do is to create that business case, and if possible, get a sponsor. We have said the sponsorship is when that high-level person is able to ensure that this project is actually implemented and it gets the necessary resources into place to ensure that the goal of data governance is met by the organization. So the data stakeholders we're talking about the regulatory bodies. We are looking at the board level persons that are involved in determining how the data that is collected from your consumers is used. They also define what is the strategic direction of the data used within the organization. Maybe they could be looking at saying that it is actually maybe privacy, and they could be saying could be security. If you look at a good example is Apple, which that organization in the US, because there was a time they were being subpoenaed by the US government to actually provide some of the records from some iPhones. And Steve Jobs was the CEO at that time, the late. He said that actually their data is in an encrypted format. It is in a scrambled format that even they themselves as Apple are not able to access. So they were saying that actually they were not going to adhere to what the US government was saying as to the subpoena that was being issued for the provision of some private data or some private information on some of their customers. So this is very critical. So when you're talking about the board level, we are looking at these are the guys who determine the strategic direction of the data used within the organization. Of course, you can put up a data governance offices, and if you just go to LinkedIn right now and look at data governance jobs in Kenya, you'll be shocked. There are a good number of them, data governance jobs in Kenya. If you didn't know that there is such a career path, it actually exists. There are actually data governance jobs in Kenya. I think KRA is advertising for one, or I don't know whether they have actually selected one person, and a good number of private companies, they're actually doing the same. So data governance offices can actually be set up to be responsible for this process. And then, of course, you're looking at people like data stewards. These are the guys who actually have responsibility at a departmental level. And of course, as a manager, this is actually you, where you are saying that you are actually providing direction to the data controllers, the data processors, on how they're going to manipulate the data within your department. So Phyllis, let's move on to the next one. So as we have said, you look at the data governance framework. Let's move on to the next one. The data governance framework actually looks at the scope of the data use. Kindly go back. Thank you. So what we want to do is to look at where are you at within your organization. And this is just a simple graph that shows us how the data governance process, or the maturity process, actually progresses. And you want to just look at very shortly where you could be at. So you'll have to measure yourself at an organization level. So this kind of a maturity model is actually very key for most of us. So you need to look at it later and see at what point are we at as an organization. So this framework actually starts out when someone is actually unaware that data governance is something that needs to be practiced by an organization. And I think we are remedying this, of course, and we are saying that if you are at this point, you are unaware, your board members are unaware, your management is unaware that there is even something called data governance. They're wondering what is this. Then you need to ensure that you provide education to them on the same. They need to be enlightened as the need for data governance. So they need to ensure that they determine what is the key strategy of the organization as relates to the data that they are collecting. Do they need to, are they adhering to the Data Protection Act? And you'll say that Capability is on hand to help you facilitate this. And then you could be unaware, and then you could move to a state of awareness. So when you're talking about awareness, this is of course where now the organization feels that there's a need to implement some data governance practices within their systems. So this is where they draft strategies, proposals around enterprise information management. They start cataloging their data assets. They start ensuring that they look at who could be responsible for the data governance at the departmental level. They start identifying who are the data processors, who are the data controllers, who are the people who actually are the data owners, where are we getting our data from. So at this point, we could say that your organization is actually aware. And then after you get into a state of awareness, you now move into a reactive kind of position. This is where actually, after you set up the policies at the level of awareness, where there are policies within the organization, but the level of adherence is actually very low. And this is why we are saying that the top management is actually asserts the need for enterprise information management or for data governance. And after you've done that, you find that at this point is where you need to prepare a business case, because many times when there is a low level of adherence, it means actually that the board level persons or the top management has actually not bought into that fund or bought into that project. So after you've ensured that there are policies in place, you need to set up a business case that can actually convince the top management of the need for data governance, convince them of the need to fund such kinds of projects or to direct resources towards that. Of course, resources in terms of money, in terms of people, in terms of a budget. And of course, after you've done that, you ensure that you purpose your business case to ensure it aligns with the mission and the vision of the organization. And that is when you are in a more reactive phase, when adherence is low. Now, when you move to the proactive phase, this is where adherence is actually high. Because why? You have actually won approval from top management. You have actually gotten a budget that relates to data governance. The people who have been appointed have actually been notified. It has been put in their contracts that these are some of their responsibilities. So at this point where you're actually proactive, this is where there's an acceptance, there's an adoption of data governance as a key thing for the organization. The information owners, the information manipulators are actually assigned, and then data governance becomes a big part of the organizational agenda. And of course, once you move from a proactive kind of stance, you move to a more a managed section, whereby this is where we are saying that data now becomes an asset to your organization. This is where, of course, you have ensured that there's data quality, there's privacy, there's protection, there's security. And so data has become an asset to your organization. The policies that are actually put in place around data governance are actually understood, and they are being implemented across departments. And then the assets are organized. You have defined the key performance indicators, the metrics, the goals and the successes as it relates to the data governance process. And you've even set up offices like the data governance office. You have set up maybe even a new position, and you've advertised for a data governance officer, a data governance manager, and all that. So this is where you have actually moved to a place where data becomes an asset to organization. That's why the diagram is saying about there's an inventory of departmental information, and then there's a linking of activities and resources to enterprise information management or data governance. And then once you've moved from a managed phase, the high point is at the last phase, which is when you actually in an effective kind of position as relates to the data governance implementation within organization. This is where, of course, you have actually attained your goals that you set out in the first phase to, or in the second phase, when you are talking about awareness, you have actually attained the goals that were actually targeted when you're implementing data governance within the organization. So this is where you need to ensure that you maintain compliance, because complacency can actually come in. There could be laxity in the level of appreciation or for the need for data governance. People maybe could not be adhering to the rules that are set in place. So this is the place where you need to ensure that there is a lot of enforcement so that people do not fall off the bandwagon and go back to a place where data is actually not being used as an asset within your organization. So generally, these are the simple steps that we need to ensure we set in place so that we can move data governance. We need to ensure that we do not ignore the driving factors that are in the market. And then we need to look at the data governance framework, which of course we have said it has three just general components: the rules and the rules of engagement. You need to look at the processes that you're setting in place, and also the stakeholders, the organization bodies that actually invested in your data governance process. And after that, you need also to consider at what point are you as an organization in terms of your maturity model as relates to data governance. So generally, data governance is becoming something that is so important, because remember, the scope of data governance covers the privacy of our information, it covers the security of the information, and it also covers compliance to the regulations that actually enforce as relates to ensuring that customer data is used for the purpose for which it was intended. So if I give you a short example, remember that there was a time, I think in 1999, where because of the lack of data governance, NASA, I think you know NASA is the national space agency in the USA. They were actually preparing for a mission to go to Mars. They were actually sending a robot to go to Mars. And because they had not ensured that the data quality was actually uniform throughout the process, actually the mission aborted. I think there was some kind of technical challenges, or there was some explosion, because one of the computers that was actually preparing some of the specs was using imperial units. Imperial units are these units that are used in the UK, like pounds. They use, I think they use pounds. They use fallows. You know, they're those weird kind of units that are not being used currently for most of us. And all of the other computers were actually using the STI units that we actually know, the metrics ones, where they're using centimeters, kilometers, and all that. And what happened is that because of this discrepancy between these two measurements, there was actually that explosion, and the whole project had to abort. And it was actually at the last phases when money had been invested, and we were not supposed to send robots to Mars. So it shows you that data governance is actually very key for all organizations. And it is because of such kind of instances that there's been a greater drive. So as we go into the future, remember, every organization that I'm speaking to, whether you're running your own business, whether you're in a public or private organization, every organization, number one, as we move into the future, it is becoming more technology driven, and it is becoming more data driven. So we need to ask ourselves, Phyllis, the next slide, we need to ask ourselves whether we have an effective data security governance strategy for each of our organizations. Remember, we cannot wait for the future to happen to us. We need to ensure that we are very proactive, so that we are not caught flat-footed as events are happening, or one day you just wake up and find that the data protection commissioner has just showed up at your doors and is actually seeking for some answers as to the infringement of some customer privacy issues around data. So we need to ensure that we are proactive. So do you have an effective data security governance strategy for organization? If you do not have one, ensure you reach out to us, and we'll be able to help you to implement one. So I think with that, we come to the end of this presentation. So Phyllis, Simon, I think Simon, back to you, so that we can get any questions that maybe the delegates have, and then we'll be able to call it a day. So thank you very much for listening to us. Much, if you can hear me.
Yeah, sure, Samuel. Thank you so much, Mr. Samuel, CPA Peter, and of course, Phyllis, for taking us through this very technical yet very important session. And I believe our delegates have been well informed on the same. And now we want to welcome any questions or concerns with regards to what our trainers have shared with us. So you can simply raise your hand, and then we can pick on you. Meanwhile, if you are in a place or a position where you think you cannot speak, you can simply use the chat section. We'll still pick up your your question and address it. Anyone? Yeah, so meanwhile, as we contemplate on the same, let me use this opportunity to give us a reminder on the upcoming sessions. So I want to appreciate your sacrifice to be present on this webinar today. And the next one we'll have is on the changing role of HRM in the 21st century. And we'll be having one of the directors of Ernst & Young taking us through that free webinar. So it will be on 14th of October. I believe that will be next week. If you have not yet registered for that, you can simply use the link that I have provided on the chat section. And then we also have another webinar that I believe most of us will also like to attend, which will be on 21st of October. And that will be addressing the concern, is technology and artificial intelligence replacing the modern accountant? So if you are very interested to just be part of the session on that, kindly use the registration link that I've provided, so that you can ensure you are not left out on the same. So I'm still having the room open for questions with regards to what we have learned today. So if you feel you have a pressing issue or concern with the regards to data governance, kindly, this is the time for you to air out, and then we can have a discussion on the same, even as we try our best to keep time. Okay, I can see Judith and saying that are very good insights on data security governance, and she appreciates, of course, CPA Samuel and his team. So let me use this opportunity again to share with us just a few important sessions that I believe some of us might be interested in. And this is with respect to our physical trainings that we are having. So with me, I've just shared us a banner that advertises the training on Excel modeling for beginners. And you can see the dates from October 19th to 24th, where we'll have the basic level training, and then 26th to 31st, where we have an intermediate level training. So if you believe go through Excel training, beginners especially, it's time to actually visit our website and make a registration, or you can also contact us at customer support at capable.com. So the training will be in Nairobi at Safari Club, and you can join the delegates who have already registered, and you can also mobilize your department or rather your fellow colleagues to also come for the same training. Of course, you can see that the price is very affordable. That is 49,850 net of tax. And then another important session that I think we can consider our training is the one on budget analytics. And we'll be having, of course, it's an Excel training, and we'll be having it as from 2nd to 14th November in Mombasa. We'll be focusing on Power BI and Power Query skills. So once again, you can take this opportunity and maybe mobilize your colleagues so that you can get approval for this kind of training and join other delegates on the same training. We also have the training on internal audit managers, and this is scheduled to be, I think, starting next week. Of course, it's a 2-week session, so you can opt to register for next week or the other week or both weeks. So another important training is the one on IPSAS, FRS, asset management, leases, finance, sustainability, and response to the pandemic. This one is scheduled at 19th to 31st October this month, I believe, in Mombasa. So you can also visit our website and make registrations or contact one of us directly, or simply email us at customer support at Capability. We will always share with you the training materials, the course content, the performer invoice, and every detail you need so that we can serve you on the same. And remember, we can also have customized training. So if we share with you an event and you believe that the topics do not really align to what you need, you can always customize the training to ensure that we have topics that you believe will be impactful to you or meet your needs. So another one is on, I think it's FRS asset management. I think almost similar to the one I've just shared. And starting next week again on 12th to 17th, if you prefer to be in Kisumu or Mombasa, you can still take that opportunity and attend. And of course, we have another one next week on PFM policy. You can simply also take this chance and mobilize your colleagues so that you can attend. So my encouragement to all of us is to always find time and maybe visit our website so that you can be able to see the good things of product that we have prepared for you. Our calendar of events is 100% updated. So kindly find time to visit our website and look at the various modules that we have sat down and developed for you and your colleagues. You can easily go through all the events, all the upcoming events through the calendar that you can see there on the screen, and pick events that you believe will be relevant to even as we try our best to expand our professional horizons on our respective fields. I don't want to say much because of time. And until this point, I have not seen anyone raise their hand with regards to what you have learned today, believing that we have been satisfied, and we appreciate all the same. So at this moment, I would like to welcome any general concerns, not necessarily related to the training that we have had. You can just raise your hand and share with us, even as we are about to end today's session.
Simon, can you hear me?
Yes, CPI can.
Yeah, I just want to make an observation about the topic of today. My internet is not very good sometimes. I was not receiving very well. In the recent times, and after the launch of, after the implementation of the Copyright Act, there has been harassment by people coming from the copyright implementation department, visiting very innocent operators like cyber caves, and they go through their equipment and pin them down for information left at the cyber cave by customers who have come and paid very little to have their things done in the cyber cave machines. And these people are actually, disoriented and put into a lot of high costs and fines, some of which we cannot afford. I know some of them have even closed down as a result, yeah, which is actually harassment and which is counterproductive implementation of the law. Now I'm looking at the powers given to the yet to be appointed Data Protection Commissioner. And most likely, although it says that the institutions or individuals visited will be both in public and private, but government tends not to harass government. So most of the implementation and supervision and those surprise visits are likely to be made to the private companies and so on and so forth, who are not even aware about the existence of the Data Protection Act. So I'm just hoping that in good faith that the newly appointed commissioner will plan it in a way that people are first of all made aware. There will be awareness kind of, education given to the business community so that they can take the right action before they are found in the wrong and they find unnecessary or out of harassment. It's my comment.
Okay, thank you so much, CPA Francis. We actually appreciate that comment because it really cuts across. And it's a general concern actually because this is something that will be happening. Of course, it has been happening, and even as we try to implement this issue on data governance, I believe for the commissioners or the stakeholders will be responsible for that. I want to believe that and hope that the strategies that they will put in place will actually take care of these necessary scenarios that, for example, the one that you have just shared with us. So thank you so much for bringing that to light. And I also believe members in the House will also take that into consideration, especially when they will be trying to implement the same in their departments and institutions. So I don't know if there is anyone else with a general concern or a question or something to add on what FCPA has shared with us. Okay. So because of time, I would like to bring this session to a close. You can see it's 1:32 p.m. We have tried our best to keep time, having it at 1 hour 30 minutes, and we have just gone overboard by, I think, 2 minutes. So at this point, I would once again like to appreciate all of us for sacrificing your time. I believe most of us have started resuming their normal daily schedules at their various workplaces. But it has been noble of you as a professional to just create time and ensure that you don't miss out on these very educative sessions that we usually have. So we really appreciate that. And we really are grateful for your support on that. And we believe you will always be with us in these knowledge sharing sessions. So I want to invite CPA Jason to say a word, and then he can also pray even as we end this session. Karibu sana CPA Jason, if you can hear me.
Thank you, Simon. I hope you can hear me. So I would like to just, thank you. I would just like to quickly pass my appreciation to all the membership that was able to attend today's session. We are hopeful that you were able to pick one or two lessons that you may apply going forward into your workplaces and even personal lives. We picked the topic in the hope that, with the current times, it was pragmatic and a topic of current affairs to be able to just bring to your attention all matters related data. And we're hoping you're going to be more data savvy, and the knowledge will help you, to be able to protect more your information and know how well to interact in your physical spaces. So of course, we also encourage you to attend our upcoming events, as has been indicated by my colleague Simon. I think the next webinar being the changing role of HRM in the 21st century, that will be presented by a very able speaker of our time. So having said all of that, I would like us to quickly have a word of prayer as we finish this session. So we shall go and believe. Father in heaven, come before you this afternoon. We thank you for the moment we've had, for the lessons learned. We hope we're able to take them into practice as we go back to our activities. How we pray that you may be with us, may your spirit guide and govern us. As we plan for our next meetings, we hope that will bring us back in one piece. For all this we pray, trusting and believing in Jesus' name. Amen. Thank you.
Thank you, Jason.
Thank you.
So we can be free to disperse and engage on our other schedules. Thank you so much.